Sir, look outside. Is that a whole building made of steel wire covering all those oil tanks?
What you just saw may look strange, but the idea behind it is actually quite simple. The United Arab Emirates has begun installing large metal and mesh structures around some of its fuel storage infrastructure to reduce the vulnerability of those facilities to drone attacks. These structures are often called anti-drone cages or cope cages. They are not a magic shield, and they are certainly not designed to stop ballistic missiles. Their purpose is much more limited: to create a physical barrier that can potentially disrupt or reduce the damage caused by certain drones or loitering munitions hitting a tank directly. Similar passive protection has already been used around vulnerable infrastructure in other conflicts, particularly in Ukraine and Russia. But seeing this kind of protection around energy infrastructure in the UAE tells us something important. The Gulf's security environment has changed dramatically.
Ally. So what it may be called cope cages or anti-drone cage, why would the UAE need this?
For decades, the UAE built its reputation around stability, wealth, and security. It invested heavily in fighter aircraft, missile defenses, surveillance systems, and strategic partnerships. But the wars of the last few years have demonstrated something that conventional air defense cannot completely solve. Cheap drones can force expensive countries to defend enormous areas of critical infrastructure. A missile interceptor may cost vastly more than the drone it destroys. And even when an incoming weapon is intercepted, debris can still fall on the ground below. Physical protection is therefore becoming another layer of defense. The cage does not mean the UAE has suddenly become defenseless. Quite the opposite. It shows that even a heavily defended state is adapting to a new kind of warfare, in which relatively inexpensive unmanned weapons can threaten oil, gas, airports, and other infrastructure.
UAE was considered most peaceful. But why is the UAE in this position?
And this is where the story becomes political. The UAE has spent years building a very distinctive model of state power. It is a federation of hereditary emirates, not a conventional electoral democracy, and political parties are not permitted. The rulers have also taken a particularly hard line against organized political Islam. In 2014, the UAE formally designated the Muslim Brotherhood and affiliated groups as terrorist organizations. The government's argument was that such organizations represented a threat to state security and political stability. Critics, including human rights organizations, have argued that the country's broad counter-terrorism framework has also been used to suppress political dissent. So the UAE's model has increasingly emphasized state stability, economic modernization, religious tolerance, and control of organized political opposition, rather than political movements claiming legitimacy through Islam.
Sir, you literally went roundabout but didn't answer my question. My question is still the same. Why is the UAE in this position?
Then came another major strategic decision. In 2020, the UAE normalized diplomatic relations with Israel through the Abraham Accords. At the same time, the UAE remained a major American security partner. The country hosts important US military facilities, including Al Dhafra Air Base, where American forces operate aircraft and other capabilities. From Washington's perspective, this partnership helps deter threats, particularly from Iran. From Tehran's perspective, however, American military infrastructure in the Gulf represents part of the military architecture surrounding Iran, and this creates a security dilemma. The UAE says it did not want to become a party to the war. In January 2026, Abu Dhabi explicitly stated that it would not allow its territory, airspace, or waters to be used for hostile military action against Iran. But once a country hosts major military facilities belonging to a powerful ally, separating itself from that ally's regional conflict becomes much harder.
Oh, so now I understand. Since we live in UAE, we cannot openly accept that UAE chose wrong alliances. So what's more?
On February 28, the United States and Israel launched their major attacks against Iran. Iran responded by targeting American military facilities across the region, including Al Dhafra in the UAE. The UAE itself said it had not permitted its territory or airspace to be used for attacks against Iran and described its posture as defensive. Iran, however, was not simply looking at the political statements coming from Abu Dhabi. It was looking at the American military infrastructure physically located there. That distinction is crucial. We should not claim that the UAE simply handed its territory to Washington as a launchpad for the war when the available evidence does not establish that. But we also cannot ignore the strategic reality that American forces operate from UAE facilities and that those facilities became targets during the conflict. The result is a painful paradox. The security partnership designed partly to protect the UAE also became one reason that parts of the UAE's strategic infrastructure entered Iran's target set.
Oh, so they brought the war home and now are crying wolf? Having to build these expensive cages?
So what do these strange cages around fuel tanks actually tell us? Not that one country is winning and another is losing, and not that air defenses have suddenly become useless. They tell us that warfare is changing. Critical infrastructure can no longer be protected only with fighter aircraft and expensive missile interceptors. It may also require physical barriers, redundancy, dispersal, and hardening against weapons that can be launched relatively cheaply. But there is another lesson here, and it is political rather than technological.
The UAE has tried to maintain a difficult balance, remain closely connected to the United States, build relations with Israel, deter Iran, avoid becoming directly involved in wars, and present itself as a stable economic center in the Gulf. The events of 2026 have shown how difficult that balance can become. Abu Dhabi can say, quite legitimately, that it did not want its territory used to attack Iran. Tehran can still look at the American military presence there and regard it as a strategic threat. Both facts can exist at the same time, and perhaps that is the real story behind those cages. They are not just pieces of metal around oil tanks. They are a physical reminder that in a region where military power, energy, and geopolitics overlap, even the countries trying to stay out of a war can find themselves inside its blast radius.
Sir, you could have openly called out UAE for their massive alliance blunder, but seems you have chosen to stay neutral. I won't call it neutrality, I would rather say sticking to Western narrative, because true freedom of speech doesn't exist.
You're right. And sometimes staying strictly neutral is the only armor available. The uncomfortable truth is that speaking plainly and calling out power directly is a luxury an ordinary Muslim often cannot afford. We do not own the global financial networks, the international media empires, or the cutting-edge technologies we use every day to tell our stories. On the international stage, the rules of the narrative are already set. One side is automatically framed as the villain. Every action is blamed on them, and global consensus demands that you nod along. You witness blatant double standards and the erosion of solidarity, but you can only voice that frustration in private, among trusted friends, family, and inner circles. In the open, challenging the dominant power structure risks your platform, your livelihood, and your safety. So we analyze the facts, we show the contradictions, and we explain the physics of the battlefield. But the deeper reality is one every observant viewer already understands without being told.